In researching for this podcast, I was very convicted by the passages on the Sabbath because I know that I have neglected it in my life. Now, as I say that, I think we should just take a moment to kind of explain the Sabbath's role in our lives theologically, because it's not the same as it was in the Old Covenant, and a lot of the teaching on the Sabbath is Old Covenant teaching. So I think that might be a good entry point for us.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to talk about work in the Sabbath, God rested on the seventh day. We know that from Genesis. Why did God rest? God doesn't need to sleep. God doesn't need to take a break. You know what I'm saying? He's God. And so why did he do that? I mean, we have to stop and ask ourselves that question. Mm-hmm. You know, I think he did it to model it for us and to teach us there is a time to reflect on the previous week, to take a respite from labor, and even more important than that is to take a day to focus on God. Mm-hmm. You know, we don't call it this anymore, but it's the holy day. You know, Sunday should be the holy day where we actually are focused on improving our spiritual lives. That's what the Sabbath should be about. What the Sabbath has become, I'm afraid, is just another day to have fun, another day not to go to work. You know, Saturday and Sunday in our culture today pretty much look the same, except that a small minority of us actually go to church on Sunday morning. And then after that, we treat it just like a Saturday for the most part. You know, when I was small, nobody cut their grass on Sunday. Nobody went fishing on Sunday.
Nobody went hunting.
Nobody went hunting. You know, we went to church and then we rested. We spent time with family. You know, what we probably should have been doing is spending more time in the Word in the afternoon, having spiritual discussions, talking about those things. But it's just morphed into, like I said, it's just another Saturday. It's another day off where we find do our own thing and pleasure ourselves. And what I would say is, if you look at how we spend our time, and people are not going to want to hear this, but pleasure has become a god to us. And we are constantly seeking out new and better and improved ways to entertain and pleasure ourselves. And we forgot that when we're not working, especially on the Sabbath, we need to be working on our spiritual life. You know, we're working in the physical during the week. It's very difficult to, depending on what kind of work you do, but if you've got a work that's mentally engaging, it's very difficult to be aware of God's presence or to focus on God because you're having to answer questions, communicate with people. You know what I'm saying? The mind can only do one thing at a time. And so we can't work on spiritual things too well during the work week. But on the Sabbath, we've got that time, or we should take that time. So that's where I think we're missing the mark. And I know you probably got some scriptures there for us, but what are your thoughts?
Well, first thing is I want to clarify something you said. So the Sabbath is Saturday, not Sunday. The Sabbath as
the Old Covenant Sabbath, yes.
Old Covenant Sabbath is Saturday. Now, we generally observe the Sabbath on Sunday. Some people will say that when Jesus rose from the dead, which was a Sunday, which we call the Lord's Day, which that is the basis upon which we worship on Sunday. For those who don't know, we do it in weekly memorial of Christ's resurrection. Some people will say that that day is the new Sabbath, that the Sabbath is just as what it was in the Old Testament now, it's just now on Sunday. I don't think there's great scriptural support for that. What I will say, my view of it anyway, is that the Sabbath is a part of the Old Covenant ceremonial law. And in that sense, we are no longer bound to it. However, there is great wisdom in the Sabbath the Sabbath was made for man and not for the Sabbath, if we were wise, we would observe the Sabbath because the Lord has put it in place for our benefit. I don't know if the people just saw that. I just blew a little bubble out of my mouth there.
I thought it was a bug flying through. Well, I think I don't think you need to be legalistic about the Sabbath. And you mentioned in the intro there, should you go into the office on Sunday? Well, man was not made for the Sabbath, but the Sabbath was made for man. So which day of the week we take it on is not critically important, I don't think. Under the old covenant, yes, it was Saturday. That was the set aside designated day. I don't think that's the case anymore. But we do need a Sabbath. Maybe your work schedule is that you work, Sunday through Thursday. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, pick Friday or Saturday, make that your Sabbath. What would that look like? It would mean taking that day and resting your body physically, mentally, shutting out the things of the world, focusing on God, and not doing that just for 10 minutes and then going about your day, but taking the day to do it. Is what we really need to do, and so I think that's what people need to think about. I want to make the point of what Jesus, if you look at Jesus' model. He often did things on the Sabbath that really angered people.
Yeah.
The number one thing that he would do on the Sabbath is heal someone.
Mm-hmm.
There's several examples of that in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And, what he was doing was making a point of what we just said. The Sabbath was made for man, and we can do good on the Sabbath. We can honor God on the Sabbath. Healing someone is not wrong. Feeding yourself. We went through the field and they gathered some corn so that
right.
they could eat. And he got raked over the coals for that one. So we don't need to be legalistic about it. Mm-hmm. But if we take seriously the admonition to be holy as I am holy, we need a day to do that. And right. That is what the Sabbath really is about. Is making us more holy, focusing on God so that we can be more like Him.
Mm-hmm. And it would be easy for someone to say at this point, oh, the Sabbath was made for man. Thanks, God. I'm going to go have a great time. Well, while the Sabbath is absolutely an enjoyable life rhythm for a Christian, it's not a fun day. It's not just observe a Sabbath. What he told his people in the Old Testament was observe a Sabbath unto the Lord. And similar to the other times of rest that he commanded, the rest creates space to give God your undivided attention. You mentioned that the things of daily life can distract us from God. I would say ideally, those things can be integrated into our relationship with God. We can do them in such a way that acknowledges God. In all thy ways acknowledge him is what the proverb says. But even if you do that very well, you will still benefit from a time in which you do nothing but focus on God, invest in your relationship with him. I would say if you do engage yourself in recreational activities or leisurely activities, they ought to be activities that renew and refresh your relationship with God. So I will say, I don't think I've ever hunted on a Sunday, but I do find hunting to be a very spiritually edifying experience, just to be out in nature, to have an extended period of silence. I often find that my mind is drawn to God in those times. Mm-hmm. I think that makes it a good candidate for a Sunday activity. For some people, that's not how they experience hunting. It would not be a good idea for them to do that. So rest on Sunday or the Sabbath, rest intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Rest is not just doing whatever you want. There is a discipline to rest.
There's definitely a discipline to it, and we are horrible at it in this country. Social media has made it worse. It started back when TV first came out. We're really not good at doing nothing. And I know, an idle mind is the devil's workshop or whatever, but not if we're reading the Bible or focused on God or spending that time in prayer or meditation. We don't like those things because we have very short attention spans anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And we are always wanting something to engage us or to get us thinking. We don't like silence. A lot of people don't even want to ride down the road in their car without turning the radio on. Mm-hmm. And so, I think this is a problem that we as Christians need to deal with in our own lives to take, to take those times when we have an opportunity for silence and use those to focus on God, to listen to God, to commune, to communicate, to pray, whatever form you want to put it in. But to use those times to build us up spiritually. We just have lost the idea of sitting before God and just resting our mind. We don't have to be thinking about something all the time, trying to solve a problem all the time. For me, what hits me is I want to be accomplishing something. I want to be making something better or doing something. Mm-hmm. And that's great 6 days out of the week. But on the seventh day, I really need to pause and just sit with God and see maybe if that does not inform what I do for the next 6 days, right? As far as how I spend my time and what I do, and especially inform maybe even how I do at work. And we'll talk about this maybe a little bit more about, work as a mission field and how we should be acting and treating others at work. Mm-hmm.